All right, everybody, I'm back, and I'm gonna go over the death of Jezebel. Um, for those of you who don't know who Jezebel is, she was the wife of King Ahab, and Ahab was one of the most evil and wicked kings ever, and out of all the evil kings in Judah or Israel. Um, yeah, I hold on to reign, and in the 11th year of Joram the son of Ahab began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. Yeah, I think they were rulers over Judah. Judah and Israel it's funny because how all the sin started in Israel was with King Solomon. Believe it or not, King Solomon was he was the one that prayed for wisdom. When as soon as he was anointed king, he started off good. He started off real good. And King Solomon is the son of David, the biological son of King David. And when King David was on his deathbed, he chose Solomon to reign in his stead. Um, and so Solomon prayed to God for wisdom and understanding to rule his kingdom. And God blessed him abundantly with riches and everything. He made him the most richest king on the face of the earth, and he did that because he chose wisdom and understanding. God told him, because you have chosen wisdom and understanding, I'm going to give you wisdom and understanding, and I'm going to give you an abundance of riches as a reward for being wise enough to choose wisdom and understanding. You know what I mean. And God rewarded him with abundant riches. Excuse me. Um, let me see. Oh, so years pass by, and King Solomon builds the temple of God. He builds the temple for the Ark of the Covenant, and he does a lot of amazing acts with his wisdom and understanding. And his wisdom and understanding is so great that people come from miles all over the world to talk to Solomon just to heed his wisdom. His wisdom was so um, it was almost like a circus attraction. You know, when people would go on vacation or whatever. You know how some people, when they're going on vacation, they're like, let's go to Paris, let's go to France, let's go see all the seven wonders of the world. Well, back then it was like, hey, let's go on a trip, let's go see Solomon, let's go hear his words and stuff. That's how wise he was. Um, and he had it all. He had, man, I'd have to look it up. I didn't think I was going to talk about Solomon. Good, well, because I'm leading up to Jezebel. Um, he had, like, I think 3,000 wives and 700 concubines, something like that. He had it all, and God told him, God gave him all these wives and concubines, and God told him, do not sleep with women of these strange religions, because they're going to turn your heart and you're going to start worshiping other gods. Don't do it. What does he do? He's got all these wives and concubines. What does he do? He starts sleeping with, little by little over time, he starts sleeping and messing around with these foreign wives, with these foreign women, I mean, that God told him specifically, do not do that, because they're going to turn your heart and you're gonna become an idol worshiper, basically. Um, so that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. And God told him, you know what? Because you have done this, I'm gonna divide the kingdom up. I'm At the time it was all Israel. It was just all Israel, and God told him, I'm gonna divide the kingdom up. Um, and and I'm gonna leave a little part for your son, for the sake of my son David, who was dear to me. But you're gonna be replaced, and it's gonna be Judah and Israel from now on. And someone was reigning over Judah, and someone was gonna replace Solomon. But Solomon was like embarrassed or jealous or whatever of the new ruler that was gonna take his place. So he set out to kill him, and that guy ran for his life, and he didn't come back until the death of Solomon. And that's how the division in Israel started. That's how all the sin of the kings started. It was through Solomon, because when Solomon started worshiping all the Ashtoreth and Ishtar, he started worshiping all these foreign gods that I'm mentioning right now. I think maybe even Chemosh. And he started learning these false rituals that of how they worship, and he started establishing these false rituals in Israel. And so people were following his example, these evil kings that would become evil, following King Solomon's example. So so yeah, that's how it all that's where it all started. They were following King Solomon's example, and they became even more evil. I don't know if they were trying to outdo each other. I could be more evil than you can, and all this other stuff. And it was a succession of evil king. On occasion, there was a king that would do right in the sight of God, and he would try to reverse everything, but it was fruitless, because when he died, the next king that came was an evil king, and it erased all the good that he did. So that's how the division started, and we come to Ahab, the lineage of all the evil kings, and Ahab was recorded as one of the most evil kings of all of them. I think there was one that was after Ahab. There was one that was said to be even more ruthless and evil than King Ahab, because Ahab had some sense, a little bit of sense. He wasn't a complete knucklehead. Um, Something had happened, and some evil prophecy had been passed down to Ahab, and the prophet told Ahab, "This is what's gonna happen to you." Blah 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 blah, and and Ahab humbled himself. Ahab had the sense to humble himself, and God said, "You know what?" God told the prophet, "You know what? Because Ahab has humbled himself, I'm gonna bless him in some form or fashion." That's not how God put it, but I forgot exactly what God took back some of the prophecy, that this evil prophecy that was gonna fall on Ahab. God took it back, and so Jezebel was Ahab's wife. She was, in my opinion, I think she was more evil than Ahab. She had a reputation for herself. She earned a reputation for herself. So much so that now we have an evil spirit, and we make reference to this particular evil spirit. We call it the spirit of Jezebel. Man, you know what? The sun is shining, and it's very distracting. Hold on. All right. Um, where was I? Oh yeah. In my opinion, Jezebel was more evil than Ahab. I think she was gone, completely gone. I don't recall her ever being humble. King Ahab was a little bit humble. He was like a raging fire with a dash of with a drop of humility. Jezebel had nothing. She was completely gone. You know, um, yeah, it's so much so that she earned a reputation for herself. You know, earned a very evil reputation for herself, and now um, her memory and legend or what have you is carried on through a spirit, an evil spirit that we call the spirit of Jezebel. I'm not familiar with that. I think the spirit of Jezebel is a spirit that like as men, you know, sometimes we get come we a woman will come on to us very strong, very strong. Women don't come on strong like that. Like I'm talking about like a stranger will just come up to you and just make herself available to you. I'm talking about men. You know, a woman will come up to a man and make herself available to him, and women don't come on like that. Women don't, you know, and she's very seductive and very alluring, you know, and it she usually comes on to men that are lonely. I'm just saying what I've heard before. I'm not familiar with the spirit with this at all, but I think I'm going off on one of my tangents again. You know, but it so now that I've given a brief history of Israel and Judah and all the evil kings and how it all got started. I'm gonna kind of go into the story a little bit, and in my opinion, the story actually starts in First Kings. Yeah, with Elijah. Um, back in the day, because like I said, all the evil started from Solomon, right? Because of the bad choices he was making. So by the time we get to Ahab and Jezebel, you have, I think, what does the word say? You had a plethora of false prophets, just a myriad of false prophets, you know, countless false prophets. Um, I want to say about like maybe 400 false prophets. I maybe I shouldn't even brought up a number because what if it's not 400 and it's like 50? No, it was a lot more than 50. It was a lot of false prophets. Um, and there were. Can you imagine having that many false prophets in your anyway? Um, and Elijah was the only one true prophet. You know, so Elijah was all by himself. Well, it's like completely true. There was Obadiah, and there was a few prophets that were true, but Elijah was the only one that would take on these false prophets. He was the only one that would take them on. And one day, the tension, or the meeting between Elijah and the false prophets would come to a climax, um, and they were gonna meet somewhere, and they were gonna Elijah was gonna have a demonstration to show them what was up, what was really going on. So what had happened is they met at the designated place, and they were gonna have like I don't know, like a sacrifice going on, and Elijah told them to make a sacrifice altar, to make an altar, put a sacrifice on it, and they were gonna the false prophets were to try to get their fire going just through prayer and worship, right? So they put the sacrifice on the altar that they built and everything, and they prayed night and day. Of course, they were praying to their false gods, and their custom was to scratch themselves. scratch themselves. I don't know, with stones or knives or what, but that was their custom. And they they prayed, for all they were worth. They prayed and prayed and prayed that this fire would get going. This story is found in First Kings. Um, they prayed and prayed that fire would get going, and nothing. And so Elijah started mocking them and said, um, "Perhaps your God is off meditating somewhere. Perhaps he's off on a walk, or maybe he's off brooding on contemplating the meaning of life somewhere." He's mocking them. He's mocking them because the fire hasn't gotten started, and so they cried out even more to their gods. Uh, uh, More of them started cutting themselves, and they were like pleading to their gods. They were desperate. Finally, they stop. I guess finally they decide. We haven't gotten anywhere, and they stop. And so it's Elijah's turn, and Elijah sees an actual altar that was used for sacrifice, and he kind of builds up on that altar, and and then he puts his sacrifice on the altar, and he commands his servants to put water on the sacrifice, lots of water, lots and lots of water, all over the sacrifice. Uh, put um Put water, just keep for them to keep putting water, and then water built up around the altar, a puddle of water, and all the wood that was on the sacrifice got soaking wet, and and then Elijah said something. Lord, I forgot what he said, but he prayed to God, and he said, Lord, get this fire going, get this uh, sacrifice burning. This sacrifice is for you. And I'm paraphrasing. I forgot exactly what he prayed to God, but man, that fire got going. That fire, man, it burned up everything. It burnt up the sacrifice. It burnt up the wet wood, and the puddle of water that was entrenched around the altar. That started burning up. That got on fire too. And then the false prophets were amazed. They were like, "Whoa, his God really is the true God." That's what the word says, that they were amazed, and they said that his God really is the true God. And at that point, when they said that, Elijah commanded, because certain he had a certain amount of well, actually, this minor detail is kind of hazy. I don't know if he had soldiers at his disposal, or he commanded some people to arrest all, to gather up all the false prophets, and arrest them. And once they were all arrested, I don't know if he killed them all with a sword. I want to say he did, or if he commanded the soldiers to kill them. But nonetheless, they were killed in somehow, either through him or by proxy. Um, and let's see. Okay. So when all that is said and done, Jezebel finds out about it, and she threatens the life of Elijah. And she goes, by this time tomorrow, you're gonna join them. Uh, She sent that message to Elijah. So what does Elijah do? He takes off running. He takes off running to some land or something, and yeah. So I felt that story was a good introduction to what's gonna happen here. I felt that was information that was needed to know or something. Okay, so here we go. Now fast forward all the way to verse 30 of this is Second Kings chapter 9 verse 30 all the way to 37. And when Jehu was come to Jezreel, I'm not sure who Jehu was. I think the word says that he and Jezebel were at odds, or he didn't like Jezebel or something. Let me continue reading. Let me see what I okay. And when Jehu come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face and tied her hair and looked out at a window. Painted her face. She put makeup on and tied her hair back, or put her hair up in a bun, or she fixed her hair up. She fixed herself all up. In other words, to look all dolled up and stuff. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, "Had Zimri peace, who slew his master?" Had Zimri peace, who slew his master? I don't know. I think what she's telling him is, "Have you come in peace?" You know. Um, and he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And there looked out to him two or three eunuchs. So Jehu is apparently, Jezebel is up in in like maybe the third floor, or maybe fourth floor, maybe even fifth floor. I don't know, but she's high up on on several decks going up, and she's looking out the window, and she's talking to Jehu, who's standing down. And Jehu looks up and says, "Who is on my side? Who?" He's looking up at the window and saying, "Who is on my side? Who?" And the response that he got, okay, let's see. And he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And there looked out to him two or three eunuchs. So what a eunuch is a eunuch is like the prophet Daniel. He was a eunuch, if I'm not mistaken. He was what a eunuch is when when somebody cuts a man's testicles off, and that's a eunuch. Um, yeah, because they say it makes them easier to control. Um, they can't have sex anymore, so they're not gonna be distracted, and so that it's like, um, what do they call that procedure? Spade. Spade is for cats, right? When you spade a cat, um, the same procedure for dogs. Um, when they cut their testicles off. Or, golly, what's that? I forgot what the procedure's called. It's the same thing though. And he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And there looked out to him two or three eunuchs. And he said, throw her down." He's talking to the eunuchs. He's yelling up at the eunuchs, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trod her underfoot. See what happened here? Like, what I appreciate about this story is that he didn't fall for her beauty. She fixed herself up and everything, thinking like, I'm gonna seduce my way out of this situation, and it didn't work. I'm thinking Jezebel was a very beautiful woman. Don't get me wrong. I think she was evil and rotten to the core, but I think she was very beautiful. Um, I think she was someone that would used every scheme and trick in the book to get her way. and and that also included seducing men, and yeah. So she fixed herself up, and she tried to manipulate the situation, like she's always done. And all she did was ask him, "Did you come in peace?" Yelling down on him, "Did you come in peace?" And he yelled up and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And the eunuchs showed up, and he yelled at the eunuchs, "Throw her down." And that's exactly what they did. He didn't fall victim to her beauty or anything. And that's exactly what they did. They threw her down. Man, I, I don't know if it's from the audio Bible or where, but her screams falling down were like very vivid to me. And she died on impact. She died the moment she hit the ground. Like, I wonder how high she couldn't have been that high up, because Jezebel and Jehu heard each other talking. They had a dialogue going on from the ground to the where she was. Um, but you can still die like that. Some guy in San Quentin prison, he committed suicide back before they uh, they started fencing in. Um, back before they, okay, some guy in San Quentin, he jumped from the deck where he was at. He was like maybe on the fifth floor, maybe even third floor, and he jumped head first. And when he hit the ground, bam! He he hit the ground head first, like I said. And they fenced in all the areas so that no one can jump. And the only reason why I bring that up is because maybe they threw her down head. Does it say they threw her down head first? No, it just said they threw her down. Yeah, but and I bring all this up because, I mean, if she's not that high up, she could still die if they threw her down head first. And if she hit the ground head first, what a way to die. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot when she threatened back. Let's rewind again. Back when she threatened Elijah's life, and Elijah went into hiding. There came a prophecy. God passed a prophecy through Elijah or somebody, and the prophecy was that she would be thrown from a window. Kind of late to mention that, right? uh, and he said, "Throw." Okay, this is verse 33. And he said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trod her underfoot. So she hit the ground pretty hard. Yeah, it was like a splat, because her blood went everywhere, on the wall, on the horses. It just went everywhere. Um, yeah, I'm thinking she was high up, and the fact that they hurt each other was um, just one of those things. God wanted them to hear each other. Yeah. And I'm realizing right now I could keep adding detail into the story. And when he was coming, and when he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, "Go, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." So what happened is as soon as they threw her down, oh yeah, and don't forget how he trod her underfoot. I guess he was on a horse. I And with his horse, he trampled on her body, like making sure she was dead. Man, golly. um, and when he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, "Go see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. It's evident that Jehu was an evil man. It's evident that he was very wicked and very bad. Um, there's a scripture somewhere in Psalms. It says, I think it might be Psalm 34. It says, "Evil shall slay the wicked," and that's what I'm thinking of right now. Jehu is an evil man as well as Jezebel, and Jezebel was wicked. So evil shall slay the wicked. That's exactly what we're looking at here. Because look what he does. And when everything was done, he went in to eat and drink. Like, I mean, he just got done trampling over Jezebel, over a dead body, and making sure she was dead with the hooves of, by trampling on her with a horse. And then it's like he's thinking, well, it's time to eat and drink now. I mean, yeah, that's pretty wicked. And then he said, "Go see now this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." Apparently, she was a king's daughter. And they went out to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Wherefore they came again and told him, and he said, "This is the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, This is Jezebel." So the prophecy was basically saying that um that that her memory would be erased. I guess. Let me go over it. Let me take my time with that. "And the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, This is Jezebel." So in other words, God wanted her to be wiped out, and he didn't want people to go up to the body and say, "Wow, this is Jezebel." He wanted her to be unrecognizable. Wow. 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 Oh, okay. Stay blessed.